We have still two more components, two more parts of our program. I'm going to introduce Alan Stern. He is the son of Sam and Doris Stern and the nephew of Peter and Julie Stern. He is a graduate of Brown University and the University of Vermont's College of Medicine. Alan is a practicing physician at Needham Pediatrics, and he is the husband of Lori Tenzer and the father of Reuben, Jeremy, and Celia. And he was the first person who picked up the phone and called me and said, "You may not understand, but I have a father that was at Jungfernhof." I said, "Really?" "Yeah, and he's still alive." "Really?" "And I have an uncle who was at Jungfernhof." "Really?" "And he's still alive." "Really?" So that's how this group actually began, in that small way. And he lives in Needham, 15 minutes away. So it's that kind of serendipity that lives in many descendants' lives. And he's going to now introduce a video that is of 5 survivors, thank God for Zoom, but of your uncle and your father.
And only 149 survived. Good afternoon. My name is Alan Stern, and I am honored to be with you today. Of the many hats that I wear, the one that I have worn proudly since birth is that of a child of a Holocaust survivor. My father, Sam, and my uncle, Peter, were young children in Nuremberg when they and their parents were deported to Riga on November 29th, 1941. This was one of the 5 known early transports sending German and Austrian Jews to the east, or Ostland. Ironically, the passengers were forced to buy their own second-class train tickets for the one-way trip to Riga. The estimate is that of all the German Jews transported to the Ostland, only 3.5% survived the war. The miraculous story of Peter and Sam's survival started with internment at the Jungfernhof concentration camp, as well as the Riga and Pskov ghettos. In the late winter of 1944, a forced separation led to my grandfather being sent to Buchenwald, only to be killed a few months later. The remaining 3 survivors, my grandmother, uncle, and father, were transported back to Germany, eventually ending up in Ravensbrück for close to 1 year, and then Bergen-Belsen, where they were liberated by the British Army on April 15th, 1945. Those of us who are the second and third generations of survivors have an awesome responsibility, one to illuminate and tell the stories of our ancestors, as painful as they may be. After all, as Elie Wiesel would often say, God made humans because God loves stories. We are here today to honor the memory of so many people who suffered at the hands of far too many perpetrators and bystanders. The best way to honor those that died during the Holocaust and those that survived is to tell their tales. The following 15-minute video was filmed in April 2023. 5 of the remaining survivors from the Jungfernhof concentration camp in Riga gathered to share stories and memories. These survivors ranged in age from 3 to 13 at the time of their internment. As a result, the memories may be too distant, or as is often the case, happened during the formative years of development. As you watch, think of the memories that are seared for us when we are children. Think of the intergenerational trauma that may be invoked by these memories, but also think of the responsibility we all have. The responsibility to tell the stories in order for all of the memories to burn brightly. Viewing this video is particularly hard for me, personally, as my father, the youngest survivor of Jungfernhof, died 6 weeks after this video was recorded. I leave you with a poem by Elie Wiesel. Let us tell tales. Let us tell tales. All the rest can wait. All the rest must wait. Let us tell tales. That is our primary obligation. Commentaries will have to come later, lest they replace or becloud what they mean to reveal. Tales of children, so wise and so old. Tales of old men, mute with fear. Tales of victims welcoming death as an old acquaintance. Tales that bring man close to the abyss and beyond, and others that lift him up to heaven and beyond. Tales of despair, tales of longing, tales of immense flames reaching out to the sky, tales of night consuming life and hope and eternity. Let us tell tales so as to remember how vulnerable man is when faced with overwhelming evil. Let us tell tales so as not to allow the executioner to have the last word. The last word belongs to the victim. It is up to the witness to capture it, shape it, transmit it, and keep it as a secret, and then communicate that secret to others. Thank you.
Who would like to begin to introduce yourself and your relationship to this camp?
My name is, I go first.
Okay.
My name is Fred Zeilberger. I was in Jungfernhof from November, beginning of December in 1941 till the end of Jungfernhof, when Jungfernhof was dissolved, and then we were shipped to the ghetto in Riga. And at the present time, I'm 93 years old, what I mentioned before. And I live outside of New York, in Cedarhurst, New York, and I have a family. I have 3 children and 3 grandchildren, and I'm in pretty good shape for the shape I'm in.
Mhm.
I'm Fred Leser. Ich war auch, and I was also like Fred, not quite as long with my mother in Jungfernhof. My mother worked in a colony, Arbeiter colony for women. The name of the Kolonnenführer was Billig, Frau Billig. Und wie gesagt, I worked in a Knaben boy Arbeiter thing with Adelaide, and there was a guy named Justin, und da war Fred, und da waren noch ungefähr 6 other boys. Then I went to Jungfernhof, from Jungfernhof to Kaiserwald, KZ Kaiserwald, and then to Stutthof. Then with my mother, then I was separated at the beginning of Stutthof because I went to men's camp and my mother to women. I never saw her again. And then I was lucky to get to, what was it? What was the name of the next term?
I don't know, Waltham,
Waltham, and I worked there and built U-boats, and as far as I remember, the direction of the camp was Mr. Glückstein and Herr Zeilberger, Fred's father. And from Bograben, we went on a march and were stopping at a camp called Rieben, and that was to be our or my last term. I was a couple of days before freezing to death and starving, but one moment I woke up between all those corpses, and one guy said, "The SS is gone." And we heard already for days thunder of the heavy weapons, the cannons. And then the Russians came. And I got to talk to some Russian Jewish officers, and they gave us some tips. We were 5 boys, and we occupied a peasant house. There were only an older woman and a younger woman, and they nursed us back to health. We stayed there for a few months, and the Russian had not touched anything in the village, so they had chicken and pig, and they were happy to have us boys because we protected them from the Russians, who were in the evening drunk with vodka. And so everything, but yeah, up to that, and then my rest of my life started after.
We arrived December 1941, Nuremberg shipment from Bavaria. We were in the camp for a short time, may have been days to a couple of weeks, and then we were transferred to the Riga ghetto, from which another odyssey began, because we were then taken out of the ghetto because my father was an auto mechanic, and he had many of his students from Nuremberg with him, and they were made to fix German army vehicles. So until pretty close to the middle of 1943, that's what he did, and we went with him into Russia itself. Then we came back to Riga, where we were put into the civil prison, men's prison, stayed there for about 3 months, and then were smuggled back into Germany, which I believe to be near Berlin, where we were surrendered to the authorities. The people smuggling us were, to my knowledge, German army. Certainly they wore uniforms. The judge separated us. My father went to Bergen-Belsen, where he died, and our mother and the two of us went to Ravensbrück, the only women's camp, where we were from end of 1943 to beginning 44 till February 1945, at which point we were shipped by cattle car to Bergen-Belsen, where the British rescued us, and the rest is history.
My name is Herbert Mai. I originally came from Würzburg, and the first thing I remember,
I remember you.
I don't remember anybody.
He remembers you.
He remembers me.
Yeah, you took care of sheep, no?
Of what?
Of sheep.
Sheep,
Cows.
animals.
Cows and sheep, right.
Sheep.
That was the first we came to Jungfernhof, and Jungfernhof was transferred into a cattle farm or sheep farm, and we used to take care of them. And
Yeah. I remember that. You were a little boy, yeah.
the thing that I remember very well, there was a little brook there, and every day a little old lady, she looked like she was 100, came with a pot, and she had some soup in there for us, and she never spoke a word to me, and I never spoke a word to her. She only brought us food, and she left. That's the only thing I remember about her. And many times I think about, why didn't I go back there and look for that little old lady? But I many things that I should have done and could have done and didn't do. That was one of my big shortcomings. But in Jungfernhof, as far as I'm concerned, it was not bad for us because we were well taken care of. And even though, if I remember back, there was shooting and there was killing, but also good parts. My mother made hot water for people in the kitchen, and I don't remember how we kept alive there. But then the camp was taken apart, and they sent us to Riga Ghetto. And we lived in Riga Ghetto, I don't remember how much time, but there we lived in one room, my father, my mother, and myself. And we got a certain amount of ration, and we lived there till one day they took us and we went to Stutthof. Stutthof was very, for winter, was cold in the winter time, and many people froze to death. And every morning we had to stay in a appel and were counted. And then one day they gave us one loaf of bread and we were marching. And what we later found out, we were marching somewhere to get killed. But the Russians in the meantime came and we never made it that far. But one morning we woke up and all the guards were gone. And the Russians came and they took over and gave us food and brought us back to normality.
I am Sam Stern, just to get that on the record, and I am not muted as I previously was. Peter, my brother, who is 3 years older than I am, and I am 84, pretty well laid things down. There's a lot there that I do not remember, and some things that I do remember. Just to complete the cycle, we were liberated by the British, and after that liberation, we returned to Nuremberg and finally wound up in New York, United States in 1947, and we've been in the United States since then. I am the youngest survivor of Jungfernhof. We arrived there in early December of 1941, prior to our arrival, based on history that I've read. 3,000 Jews who had been brought from Berlin were executed to make room for further shipments, and my brother, mother, and father were included in that. And again, throughout the war, And after the war, we three survived. We were four when we were first put in the camp. And then the three of us, miraculously, whatever miracle means, statistically impossible events, the three of us survived and lived in the United States after the war. And my mother died what I get called a natural death. She did not reach her 70s, so she died quite young. And my brother and I have done very well in terms of being able to live in the United States. We're both professionals, and in spite of everything that happened, we're still here and intend to remain here.
And I remember very well and think about it many times, why we didn't escape, so to speak, from Jungfernhof. Because
Impossible.
in a couple of cars on the road, there was nobody there. We could have gone out of the camp and walk away without being stopped by anybody.
We are surrounded by people who talk only Latvian. Of all of the people in Jungfernhof that I know, only one person, one woman who spoke Latvian, nobody else. They were not friendly toward Jews. Once there was an escape, they caught him, they brought him back to Jungfernhof. We all had to go on an appel and witness the hanging. They put him on a tree. I used to know his name, but I would have forgotten.
It was
So escape was impossible. I only want to say that my mother and I said, if we ever be liberated from here, nobody would believe us the stories we saw here, you know. And we said, if we are by miracle, we should be survived and separated, we meet again in Hamburg. That's why I went from, when I was well enough physically, I went to Hamburg and came back to the broken city of Hamburg. And I had uncles and aunts there who lived in Mischee, and my uncle mixed marriages. And my aunt took me for the 4 years I was there as a son. And I worked in construction, and but the Nazis were there. Germany had lost the war, but the Nazis were there.
Würzburg was about 90% destroyed. So the few Jewish people who came back from different places, we all lived in a Krankenhaus, in a hospital, an old age home, Jewish old age home, and that was not destroyed. And we lived there till in 1947, when we came to the United States in January 47, we came to the United States, and we came as war orphans, because that time President Truman signed, you didn't need an affidavit. And we, even so, my father was one of 13 sisters and brothers, and about half of them lived here. They survived. They came here in the 1930s, and we came here and we lived in this home till in January 47 we came to the United States.
And I still use the word miracle, that it's a miracle that we had this meeting, that we came together.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think we should stop. And I want to thank you again for all of your participation. Every single person on this call contributed. Every single person was able to tap those memories and to be present.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And please stay in touch. I do respond to emails. And you have each other's email if you want to reach out to each other.